Holy hole in a donut!
This week's movie, Who Am I? I'm a journalist at a small newspaper firm who receives a tip-off that a drug dealer is actually working as a government informant. After some investigation, I discover the government is more responsible for the import of cocaine than they have let on. Stay tuned to find out. You're listening to the Banana Reel Movie Podcast, episode 42. Warning, this show contains spoilers and coarse language, so you've been forewarned. Hey there, folks. We are the Theatre Gorillas. My name is Carlos.
I'm Heath.
And I'm Dan.
And each and every week we get together and discuss something we've watched throughout that week. And this particular week, it is Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice. Can we cram anything else into this title?
And why did they change it to Batman v Superman? Is there any significance there?
I think they wanted to try and stray away from the fact that it is actually a Man of Steel sequel.
Right.
But they've also been saying that it's not a Man of Steel sequel.
Even
though it really is a fucking Man of Steel sequel.
It is a sequel.
Oh, totally. I totally agree. It's more like, I love it how they were coming out before, like with the preamble of this movie coming out, going, just so everyone knows, this isn't a Man of Steel sequel. This is a Batman v Superman movie. Like, so it's about them, it is not about the repercussions of Man of Steel.
Yeah.
It's immediately based on the fucking repercussions of Man of Steel.
I think what it was Snyder was still snarky at the public for their response to Man of Steel and the whole criticisms over the fact that Superman destroyed half of Metropolis.
Well, I'm sure he's very snarky right now.
Yeah, well.
All right. Just before we jump into everything, just the usual spiel. Our website is theatregorillas.com. Twitter is @theatregorillas. Facebook is facebook.com/theatregorillas. We're on YouTube. Just search for Theatre Gorillas. Am I saying Theatre Gorillas enough? Have you gotten enough? Last but not least, our email. If you want to send us something, it is theatregorillas@gmail.com, all spelt the UK English way. Don't forget to rate and subscribe, because it always helps.
Indeed.
Yes, indeed.
All right. So, on with this discussion.
Yes.
So I've got to say from the outset, I haven't been looking forward to this.
Really?
Basically, just because I don't like to dump on a movie too much, and I feel like that's probably what we're going to be doing for most of this. So maybe we should start off with the positives, the things we enjoyed.
Okay.
I can see by your face, Heath, that it's pretty much maybe just the title.
No.
Right. Wait, no, not even the title?
Oh, the title could have been better. Look, this movie, well, it had a lot of issues. Look, let's just say that. There are a lot of things that went wrong. There were, I'll try very hard to find the things that went right.
Yeah.
But they're very far and few between moments in this movie. I have to, actually, here's something I will say. The first 30 minutes of this film are fucking unreal. The first 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Granted, did we need to see another Martha and Thomas Wayne death?
No.
Probably not.
Probably not. But the whole lead up to the story of Bruce Wayne, I actually thought that was quite well done. The whole him running through away from the funeral, falling into the cave.
Yeah. But halfway through that sequence, he's in a dream all of a sudden.
Yes. Yeah.
So, that in and of itself was convoluted. That's where I started thinking, hang on, well, what's...
See, I think it was always a dream sequence, and it's just him reliving the events.
Yeah.
And, the whole idea that Batman is always haunted by the fact that his parents died, and that's his driving force. That's his nightmare through and through.
But see, the origin story also includes him falling into a cave full of bats, because that's where he gets the inspiration for the costume. The bat comes at him from out of the darkness.
Yes.
So there's an element of truth in the dream flashback that he has, but they don't make it clear where, because all of a sudden he's floating up into the air, and that's obviously not real.
Then the voiceover comes in from Ben Affleck saying...
And then he says, this is my dream. Well, it's like, well, then where did the dream start and reality end? I don't know. That was just a minor niggle, but...
That was a minor niggle. I mean, I do have to say, though, that moment he started floating, I went, oh, fuck off, really?
Yeah, I was wondering, what the hell is going on? And then, thankfully, there's that voiceover to sort of put it in its place. Yeah. One thing I wanted to mention, we just mentioned that, do we need another origin story for Batman? No, we don't. We don't really need another retelling. I understand why they've used it, and it was simply just to push out there his mother's name. But honestly, just show a headstone.
Yeah.
Or the crypt or whatever it is that you want to display. But all we need is a printed name on a surface, and that's more than enough.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly
But
right.
one thing I will give the intro sequence is that it's the standard Frank Miller telling of the pearls being, broken.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
instead of being stolen, this time it was an aftermath of the encounter, and I did like the way that the pearls actually broke.
Oh yeah, that shot of the gun clicking back.
Yeah.
After it's been shot was fantastic. Look, it was
That
a
was
very
pulled straight from one of the comic book panels. A lot of reviewers missed that, but that's a direct reference to one of the origin stories in the comics.
Well, there you go.
The pearls wrapped around the gun.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, there you go.
In Snyder's classic way, like he did with Watchmen, he
Yes.
sort of reproduced a lot of the panels of that comic on screen. And that's something I think he does really well.
Well, look, when you've got some fantastic storyboards already written for you, why go back and try and create more?
Well, that's true. Yeah.
True. But then there's the argument with Snyder and regarding, say, for example, Watchmen. He copied that novel so closely that a lot of people were like, well, you can't copy this story through and through. Like, it has to change somewhere.
It has
Because,
to be open to interpretation.
for example, that book was all about the characters. It was a comment on the characters being in a comic book, whereas they're not in a comic book in the film. They're in a film, so there should have been some commentary on action or superheroes in film.
Yeah.
So that's one argument. But personally, I think Watchmen is a great film.
Oh, look, I really enjoyed Watchmen. I thought Watchmen was great as well. And I actually, and the funny thing is a lot of people are ratting on Snyder a little bit as well for this. And I do want to say that, historically, he's made some pretty decent movies.
Yeah,
Okay.
visually really stunning.
Really good. However, I don't know if that translates very well to the DC universe.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that in a little bit more detail
Watchmen's
after.
DC. It's an offshoot,
Okay, it's Vertigo.
Yeah.
But at the same time, what I mean there is in the general aspect of the reason why these heroes are generally quite good is because they act with restraint.
Right.
So Superman doesn't level buildings and cities because he knows that he can and he doesn't want to harm anyone.
Yeah. See, I mean, I think that'll come into a wider conversation later on.
That's what I was trying to talk about. That's why I was going to leave it later.
The depressingly dark and foreboding sort of sense you got throughout this whole movie. But I just want to come back to the first 30 minutes.
Yes, let's do that.
So you're saying, the first 30 minutes set everything up really well. It was really exciting. It seemed like we might be in for a good movie, and then from there, it did.
It started to lull.
Yeah.
And I think,
Well, okay, let's dive into this a little bit.
Okay.
At what point for you, Dan, was it that you realised, okay, things are starting to slide downhill?
It was probably after the whole African encounter.
Right, so another dream sequence.
Yeah. No. The
African
dream
encounter
sequence came later when Lois and fucking Jimmy Olsen are out in the
I
desert.
know, which we now found out was Jimmy Olsen.
Yeah. So, I did want to point that out. Yeah, Snyder's come out and officially said that the undercover CIA operative that went with Lois to Africa to interview a terrorist was Jimmy James Olsen.
Yeah.
Right.
Who is now dead.
Yeah.
Yes.
And get this, though. He said he was having fun with the character doing that to him. I'm sorry, but I don't know under what definition of fun you call destroying an iconic character
Yeah.
and getting him shot in the fucking face.
Yeah, exactly
That's
right.
not having fun. That's just taking the piss.
Exactly right. And I think that's where, once again, that goes to the whole, he doesn't know how to control these characters very well, and to the historic canon that is now available about them. I just don't know if he
See, I think this is the problem with the extended DC universe is that Snyder doesn't have a solid comic book series or whatever to work from.
Yeah.
So he
took a lot from a lot of different ones in this movie.
Yeah, he has, but to his detriment as well, because he didn't understand any of those individual stories.
No.
They were sort of just thrown in for eye candy and, for the references.
Yes.
So
Whereas with Watchmen and 300, they were self-contained stories.
Yeah.
He had a very clear remit there. It was tell this story the way it is in the comic books.
Yes.
See, I wonder when it came to this film, he wanted to tell the story of Dark Knight Rises, or
Dark Knight Returns.
Dark Knight
Returns, yeah, and then Strikes again.
Yeah, so I wonder if he's like, I've built this world with Superman where he is quite sort of, it's a different telling of Superman. One of the major problems with Man of Steel was that people are like, that's not our Superman. But okay, fine, but let's take the universe he's built around that character for that film and move it into this one.
Yeah.
And he's come across, he's like, I want Batman versus Superman, and I think I can translate that story into this universe well enough. But it makes me wonder whether the studio said, well, we also want to set up Justice League, so you've got to throw all this in. And I wonder if that also muddied the water, and he's just like, I'm still going to get my scene, but I'll do what they want.
I definitely think the studio had a heavy hand in the development of this movie.
Yeah.
But that also surprises me. Well, I mean, it doesn't surprise me that the studio had a lot to do in the development of it. But if you have a look at the people that the studio had on board, like the DC cinematic creative team, you've got some of the current head DC writers. They didn't come in and say, hey, wait a minute, guys, if we do this, we've got plot points coming out of our ass right now. We're a bit too messy. Why don't we contain it? And why don't we then try and branch off for the next films for this fucking 10-year, till 2020 release list that we've got, so that way that people actually want to go and see these movies.
It was almost like the script could have done with another 1 or 2 passings before going to shoot.
I have a feeling that it had 1 or 2 passings before shooting, and then while it was shooting, it had another 1 or 2 passings.
Because remember, they rewrote it to make the focus more on Batman than Superman. Apparently, it was initially much more focused on Superman, which is odd because I don't really see the Batman focus in the finished product anyway. There's short lived sections that are concerned with Batman, but it's still very much a Man of Steel sequel.
Yeah, of course. I think maybe in that first half hour, I think there is more focus on Batman.
Yeah, much more. And that's what I was going to say, like with things that I loved in that part, that whole scene during the destruction of Metropolis, of Bruce Wayne running to Wayne Tower. That was fucking epic. Like him driving there as quickly as possible. Then getting that little girl, where are your parents? That's, pointing over to the destroyed building. That's fucking heartbreaking. Like, it was really well done. Helping Scoot McNeary out from under the building, which was a fucking waste of a good actor, which I'll talk about more later. But yeah, so I thought that was really good at setting up who Batman is, like what Bruce Wayne is. Like, his motivation is to do that sort of thing, to go into the fray, not to shy away from it.
But also, I think that scene also sets up the anger that he then follows through with for the remainder of the film.
Yes.
Yeah, see, but not very well. I have a real issue with that because, all right, so it's the opening scene. He sees the destruction of Metropolis 18 months later. He's grizzled, he's branding fucking bad guys. And he actually says to one of them, with that brand, you're not going to survive in jail. So he's effectively giving them a death sentence.
Does he say that, or someone
that
else
was
says that?
That was the newscaster.
The newscaster, right, yeah. So Batman knows he's condemning these dudes to death. But I didn't get the connect between sort of the chaos in Metropolis and how he became so fucking fanatical over 18 months. And then there's the tease with Robin's outfit as well. He was apparently killed 10 years ago by the Joker.
Yes.
So there's all these sort of conflicting motivations for why he's so fanatical and dark these days. And I just didn't feel like it came together for me. Like, they didn't establish his motivations.
See, for me, it's more of the dark Batman that we know of through Dark Knight Returns. That's what they're trying to portray, and they're trying to give his backstory by the costume that is marked by the Joker that immediately says to you, okay, what happened? We're told through other means, but not the film. And then you've got what happened in Metropolis and the fact that so many people were injured or killed. That, I think, that is the direction they're going for, but you're right. It's not enough of a reason to show why he's so heartless.
Yeah, exactly. It's sort of like, it's the sort of thing you can tease out afterwards, thinking about it and thinking about the canon, but at the end of the day, that's the movie, like you've got to be able to go into it, let's say with no knowledge of the comic books and still understand the storyline, understand why these people are doing the things that they're doing.
Yeah, and that's true as well, because remember, we've got to always think that, we came into it with a lot of back knowledge as well. Yeah. And that is, I think, one of the reasons why I had a lot of issues with it. Not just the filmmaking parts, but as in the story-wise. But then you've got to remember, people are coming into it who have no knowledge.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, they have no idea who these characters are. So you do need those little tiny setups and whatnot. But at the same time, it still didn't make 100% sense. You only know that he's been Batman for 20 years because of the throwaway comment where he goes, I've been doing this for 20 years.
Yeah. And see, this is one criticism a lot of people who enjoyed the movie have weighed against the people who haven't, is they've said, well, you're obviously not a fan of the comics. you don't understand it.
It's like, really?
Well, it's like, I'm sorry, that's not a good enough excuse. DC is supposed to be setting up an extended universe here that
Yes.
it's supposed to be accessible to everybody.
Yeah.
You know, like, sure, they're not going the same route as Marvel, but if you want, you know, wide audiences to come to see these movies, they have to be accessible. You know, they can't just be for the comic book nerds who've read every single Batman comic book that came out in the last 40 years.
Well,
like,
let's take Marvel for the example. Like any of the films, starting with Iron Man, that one is close to the comics. There are some variations, but it's close to the comics.
Yeah.
Move further down the line with, like, for example, Avengers. They've picked a storyline that isn't. It's only partially remotely related to the comics, but they've reworked it into their own cinematic universe that translates between all movies.
Exactly.
and because you know what? It has that added benefit of the comic book fans coming in and going, I don't actually know what to expect now.
Exactly.
You know, I'm familiar with the storylines they might be borrowing from, but yeah, they're doing their own thing, you know, so it appeals to both sides.
And
of the
they're also
equation.
telling a coherent story that remains true to the character.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the thing. It's a coherent story that remains true to the character. That first Iron Man, I remember us coming out of it and going, fuck, that was so Tony Stark.
Yeah.
And that's exactly right, because it was true to the character. Yes, it actually has now become more of Robert Downey Jr.'s Tony Stark, but it's still true to the character.
Yeah, I mean, in future, like when they go to remake these movies, I'm sure the next person to play Tony Stark will probably model off Robert Downey Jr.
If they do. Because, I mean,
Well,
you know,
look, let's face it, that's what Hollywood does.
yeah.
I think Downey Jr. recently said he'd like Chris Pratt to take on Tony Stark.
Yeah, I'd like to as well, but he's now embedded in the
Was
MCU.
Guardians, isn't he?
Yeah.
Well, if they ever rebooted and started off fresh, then why not? But one thing
Anyway.
I wanted to get to regarding, you were mentioning, Heath, that these characters aren't true to what most people know.
Yeah.
Granted, I do agree with that. And with Man of Steel, it was a Superman that not many people could relate to, because throughout that film, his father was always like, don't go out in public. They're too afraid of you. Don't be that. Don't be a hero, blah, blah, blah. Stay hidden. And throughout the course of the film, he's like, well, I need to do something. He doesn't go about it the way that we understand, but the way I look at that film is that he's still learning.
Yeah.
Right? He's still learning to be the Superman that we come to know.
Yeah.
And then at the end of that film, he approaches the military and said, this is how it's going to be from now on.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do my best to do what needs to be done. But then the first thing that we see when he appears is he crashes through the building. He gives one smirk to Lois to save her, right? He gives one smirk to her and then punches a guy through fucking 18 walls and kills the shit out of him.
Yeah, exactly.
See, that's one thing I was going to say. Yeah, over Man of Steel and now this movie, they've set up this idea Superman wants to be a hero. He did like two things in the entirety of those two movies that were heroic, and it was saving the people off the roof of that building and then from the fire. That's literally the only people he saved in these two movies, aside from Lois Lane.
Or the Rocket.
Or the Rocket. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, for somebody who wants to be a hero, he's not trying very hard.
No.
No, he's doing really well at saving Lois Lane.
Yeah. See, that's the thing. So it's okay to have a different kind of Superman, but it still has to make logical sense. You know, you have to understand his motivations and they have to be reasonable.
My biggest problem, right? So with that line of thinking, my biggest problem is, okay, fine, but where is his trials and tribulations where he has to make those choices? And where he selfishly could make a choice to save Lois and knowingly affect more people. And then that could come back later and go, well, I chose to save you because I can't live without you. Yeah, but you just killed 18 people.
Yeah. Well, see, yeah.
You know, and where's that conflict that he then has to wrestle with and to still fit in?
Yeah,
And
that's
he's
the
given
thing.
that situation in BVS. His mother, Lex Luthor, captures his mum. Luthor's like, go kill Batman or I'm going to kill your mum. He goes sides with the mum straight away. He's like, no worries, boss. I'm going to go kill Batman for you.
Yeah.
Like, it's just complete self-interest.
Granted, they did try and make that as, you know, oh, he goes, I'll get him to, you know, he says to Lois, no, I'll get him to, you know, I'll convince him to be on my side.
Right, yeah,
but, you know, that's a real throwaway when you do consider the motivation that he had to go and do something or to go and confront this person who seemed to only just be standing there with the fucking bat signal on for God knows how long. But he, like said, do this,
Yeah.
or I'm going to kill you, hurt your mum. Sorry.
And hold on, but one thing I want to point out is do it within the hour.
oh yeah.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. And do it within the hour.
Yeah.
That's Superman is almost the fastest man on the planet aside from the Flash. Like, how is it that he didn't just go save his mum and be back in 2 minutes?
It's like, here,
Yeah,
one sec.
yeah, exactly.
Done. Speaking of, okay, actually, funny that you said the Flash.
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
Sorry, because I was going to say, we were talking as well before about how what's things that we liked.
Yeah.
okay, yeah.
I wanted to come back to the things we liked before we continue
Sure.
deconstructing this.
Because one thing that I did like as well was, after the dream sequence, the one where it's the future, the horrific future,
Yeah.
Yep.
you have
So that is for any of people that want to know the comics of where that particular sequence came from. It's from Red Sun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
With
actually
the parademons and all
yeah.
that. Yeah.
So now what's funny as well is that, then Bruce Wayne wakes up and of course we have the Flash
Yeah.
come through in a portal saying it's all about Lois, it's all about
I
Lois.
didn't even know that was the Flash.
Who else? You know what?
They didn't make it very clear.
They
no.
did not make it very clear.
At all.
I kind of go, it has to be because who else has the ability to go through time portals?
Yeah,
Annie.
see, that's the thing. That's the only way we got to that reasoning, by eliminating every single other character. Not by going, oh, that's definitely the Flash because we know what he does. It's like, no, it can't possibly be anybody else. It must be.
See,
like,
Unless they're
thing-
going to introduce
the thing for
I don't
me
know,
is
someone.
man,
the
like
thing
that's
for me-
fucking ham-fisted.
right. The thing for me is that
I did like but what I was going to say though is I did like the look of that. Anyway, continue.
Okay.
well, that's where I'm going to oppose you, Heath, because I'm not used to seeing the Flash wear metal armor.
No, me either.
Right, so a metal helmet like that's what threw me off. I'm like, okay, who is this guy?
Yeah.
Right.
For a moment, I thought maybe it's Booster Gold.
Yeah, no, it's not,
That's a hell of a throwaway.
That's a massive,
right. That's a character that no one gives two shits about.
and no one would know who it was.
And so I'm like, who the hell is this guy?
Yeah, the red gave it away for me. I was like, it's got to be the Flash.
But the only red that you see on him is on his forehead. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was literally only on screen for a couple of seconds in that dream
I
sequence.
actually just kind of liked that they did a good old, something's happening in the future that obviously is not good, and the Flash has come back to warn Bruce.
What I have a feeling is that the Flash was trying to warn that that's a possible future that could have happened, and it's one of Bruce's fears with Superman.
Yeah.
And I think in that fear, somehow, don't ask me how, but somehow the Flash has gone through to warn him.
Yep.
Cosmic treadmill.
And yeah, exactly. And because the Flash has been known in the comics to go to the past, and the smallest ripple has a huge effect.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of those effects that he's come back and he's like, fuck, I'm too early.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you were right. And that plays into his fear. But then he wakes up from that. So it's, I don't know, it's hard to explain.
It was an odd subplot to try and work into this movie as well, and I'm sure we'll get to the many subplots that they do incorporate. But yeah, it just seems
It didn't make sense at all. It didn't fit with the flow of the story.
No.
One thing I do want to say that I really liked is, although it was a bit strange the way that they introduced the potential characters for the Justice League, some of them are really good. And I liked the way they portrayed Aquaman.
Yeah, I did like the look.
Some people will have issues with that, being that he's not blonde-haired or whatever. I don't care. I think he looked great. The fact that he is very curious about like the cameras that are getting into his face when they show that footage, I think that's quite interesting because it's kind of like, well, I don't know what you are. I'm curious, but in any case, I'm going to go sort of a thing.
He destroys the camera at the end.
Yeah, he does. And then he flies off, but there's another camera watching him. But the other is Wonder Woman. I thought Wonder Woman was a great addition to this movie.
This is what I wanted to get to, yeah. I think Wonder Woman and Batman were the highlights for me. Gal Gadot
Godot.
as Wonder Woman was great.
Yeah.
Oh, look, I have to say that give me more.
Yeah,
because I agree. I loved Wonder Woman.
And she will have more.
And she will. But
Well,
I
her
kind of.
movie's coming out next.
Yeah, which is based on the photograph that you see in this
Yeah,
movie.
exactly. Yeah.
But her in this movie was almost that almost felt like an afterthought.
Yeah,
her being in it felt like an afterthought.
just
They're
gonna
like, we
say
should
that.
probably put Wonder Woman in.
Yeah, again, she wasn't necessary.
Was not necessary.
She didn't need to be in this story.
Exactly.
It was just the hype machine, around the Justice
What
League. and
would
all
have
that.
been what would have been interesting, I think, is that being that Batman is trying to figure out who the white Portuguese is, and stealing that evidence from Lex's mainframe to find that information out. What would have been interesting is if he found the file on the metahumans by accident, going through that information, and then realized that there are other people. At least showcase those videos.
I thought he did.
No, he sends the file to Wonder Woman.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And she opens them up.
Oh, that's right,
And looks through them. But what would have been interesting is just him go through it, and his fears are coming into more realization, and then maybe have a discussion with Alfred saying that maybe I need to make alliances with these people rather than fear them, and at least I can keep closer tabs on them.
Well, he would undoubtedly have looked at the file, surely.
Of course he would, but it would have been. I think it would have been more interesting to
actually show that,
to keep Wonder Woman out of it, but still show her. Like, for example, she steals the files from him. Still have that happen, but we don't see her in costume. We see her in a photo, dressed as Wonder Woman. Then you realize, okay, that's how she's playing into it.
Yeah.
And just have her as like a calling card for future movies.
100%, yeah. Get rid of her at the end of the movie altogether. Just have those scenes at Lex Luthor's mansion with her interacting, stealing the shit.
Yeah.
So, so she's only a background character, and it's not until towards the end of the film, Batman looks at the files, goes, holy shit, that's Wonder Woman. See, that would have made so much more sense.
Yeah.
Or even...
Which is a shame, because she does have a great role in the final sequences of the film.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Well, yeah.
I did enjoy her interaction with a fight scene, but I honestly do think she wasn't necessary, and that would have been a good way to deal with that.
Definitely.
Yeah. Because I think as well, she's such a strong character, and I think she doesn't get enough in this movie. She doesn't get enough airtime. She doesn't get enough airtime to give her justice. She doesn't get enough stuff to do to. She doesn't get enough actual plot point. Everything she does is kind of just she's there.
Yeah,
it
well,
just happens.
it also doesn't make sense when her reason is he has a photograph of me. Well, it's on a computer now. There are multiple copies. You're not going to get that back.
Exactly right, and it's also it's a photo of you 100 odd years ago, and you stated yourself that you have not been in the land of man for that 100 years.
Yeah.
Who gives a fuck if people have the photo of you? You're on Themyscira.
Why was she so concerned with getting that photo back?
Yeah.
Couldn't she just, like,
Stay
if
on
somebody
Themyscira?
questioned her on it, just say, oh, that's my grandma? Like, I don't see how that...
Yeah.
But she's not even there. She's on Themyscira.
Well, there you
no
go.
one,
Yeah,
who's
yeah.
going to question John?
Well,
No
yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to say, hey, check it out. There's a chick in World War One. The end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so Wonder Woman, unnecessary, but Gal Gadot was very good
She
in
did.
the role.
Yeah, she did. I'm really looking forward to seeing the actual Wonder Woman
Wonder Woman
film.
movie. Yeah. The trailers for that have looked really good, actually. Yeah. It looks like it'll be a nice standalone feature.
Yeah.
But I also wanted to mention Batfleck.
Yes.
I think despite a terrible script, he makes a great Batman.
I thought he was fantastic with what he was being given.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Even if sad Affleck doesn't think so.
Yeah.
Look, I think out of everyone that I've seen play Batman, he played it as true to Batman as possible.
I was going to say, I think he might be a forerunner in my mind for best cinematic Batman.
It's because as well, I mean, you got to remember he is a fan of the character. He
Well,
knows the
exactly,
character
yeah.
very well, so he would know how to play the character very well.
Kevin Smith tells that story. He took Daredevil because he thought he'd never get a shot at Batman.
Exactly right, exactly. And now he's got it, and I think he's going to do it justice. However, once again, he's going to need to. He needs to make his own movie.
Yeah,
well, he is getting one.
Yeah, we've
he
we've
has.
all
He's already
talked
actually.
about that.
His script's done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
Well, they're already shooting, aren't they?
No.
No, okay.
But it's more though, he has the ability, especially with him writing and directing it. Fuck, now that'll be a good flick.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Bat flick, make a good flick. Anyway,
I reckon if that's the case, he's writing and directing. Have you guys seen The Town? Have you guys seen Argo?
yes, they're great films.
They're both really good movies.
Yeah.
yeah, no,
And
exactly.
if he's at the helm of this and he has a lot of passion for the character, granted, we don't know what the studios are going to do to this movie to keep it in check with what they've planned.
In the canon, if you will.
Yeah, but given that he's already got Argo behind him and The Town, I think they're going to let him do what he wants to do. And I really see him doing a really good noir-styled film with Batman.
Yeah, definitely.
It'd be great, And the funny thing is, as well, I could see
Very
them-
atmospheric and...
I could see them actually having, and the winner of Best Picture is, Batman being a fucking Oscar winner.
No, I wouldn't go that far.
If he's on the helm, I could see him actually doing that good a job.
It depends.
I'd say
if,
it's
if he turns
conceivable,
it into a really interesting drama that you wouldn't pick it, I reckon there's a good chance because that's what
Superhero movies don't get Oscars.
That's right, but that's what I mean. That's where I'm saying with him, he has the ability. If the studio doesn't fucking put constraints around his nuts, to actually produce a fucking really awesome film.
So
that's true.
yeah. So I think if he's in control of that, then it will be a very interesting movie.
All right, so let's get back on topic, BVS again. We sort of touched on the idea there that it's a much darker take on the entire universe. And like I said earlier, it's fine to have a darker universe, but this just seemed boring.
It's very
like
broody.
it was, yeah. And like a lot of the color was washed out of much of this film. At the beginning, Amy Adams looked like fucking 50 years old.
Yeah.
With that harsh lighting they put on her and the desaturated colors. It just didn't make for a very enjoyable experience.
I wonder, like,
He did that with Man of Steel as well, though.
I beg to differ, because when it comes to Man of Steel, if you look at the opening scene of Krypton, Krypton is really colourful. It is beautiful to look at.
It's funny, though, you then start looking at all the stuff afterwards on Earth. A lot of it's very washed out.
It's washed out, but there's still...
Like, look at all the stuff in
If you look at the
Kansas.
flashback sequences of him as a kid running on the farm,
Yeah.
they're bright and beautiful. They're really shot well.
I have to rewatch.
So I think the point there is there's contrast. So it's
Yeah.
not just all washed out and desaturated. There is a contrast there. So it shows you bright, colorful scenes to contrast with the chaos that's ensuing in the modern
So
day.
it also makes me wonder if it's visually a representation of he remembers his childhood being a certain way and the reality of his adulthood is completely different, or at least not what is expected. And because he is constantly on trial, the whole tone is reflecting his mood. And quite frankly, like, there's only one part of this movie that I think he genuinely tried to talk to people to have them understand, and that's the court hearing.
Right, yeah. And he talked for like 5 seconds before the whole place got blown up anyway.
Yeah, and I mean, that's clearly a shot at trying to frame him that he got angry or something.
Yeah.
Even though the news, see, that's another thing. The news report that after the explosion says, oh, it was a bomb that exploded.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So there was
so-
no payoff to that setup whatsoever. That entire scene, again, was unnecessary because it didn't serve any purpose but to show a whole bunch of people getting blown up.
And once again, a waste of an actor. Because
Yeah,
Scoot McNairy is a fantastic actor. And, you know, you kind of get what he's so angry at Superman. He's going to do this, and now he's a suicide bomber. And yeah, exactly. For what?
Yeah.
Oh, so it was Lex Evil plan. It did nothing.
Yeah, it didn't achieve anything
It
because
was
he didn't frame Superman
Yeah,
anyway.
all it did was just kill everyone.
Yeah.
Except for Superman.
That's not the only plot point that doesn't pay off either. Towards the end, you recall Lex Luthor, the letters he'd been sending Batman, Bruce Wayne finally finds them all in an envelope.
Yeah.
So he hadn't been receiving them for the last 18 months anyway.
Yeah.
So that was another part of Lex Luthor's evil plan that wasn't actually part of the plan anyway.
No, it didn't actually pay off at all.
Yeah, there was
Yeah.
no reason for it to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, for me, like, I understand why the explosion happened. It was all to get rid of the senator.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
But the side effect should have been that it was a 2-for-1 hit. You know, two birds with one stone. It should have been get rid of the senator and also put more blame on Superman so
Yeah.
that people that fear him even more, which also drives the fuel for Batman to be more aggressive against him to drive that plan forward. For Batman in the story, it still worked. It still made him more angry towards Superman. But if he just listened to the news report, it was literally saying, you know, his ex-employee was the suicide bomber.
They
So-
identified the bomber straight away.
yeah, like, how?
Yeah. Because during that scene, I was thinking about it actually. I was like, all right, so Superman comes out of there. He's the only one alive. They're not going to believe his explanation. And that's how it'll start turning on him. He'll be like, no, I swear there was a bomber. They'll be like, bullshit, you blew him up.
Yeah.
So
And
that
then next
would-
thing you know, the public's against him.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where the sort of tension would ramp up. But,
Yeah.
But yeah, it
So
never
that
happened.
would have been a perfect point in the film to start really putting pressure on him.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's the thing as well. At no point did I feel, I mean, I know they were going for the whole, it's Superman against the world kind of thing. And that's also one of the reasons why Batman wasn't meant to like him so much, because you saw how much power this one person had. However, there was no point where the public didn't like Superman.
Yeah.
You know, try and think of it. Try and think back to that movie. Was there a point in that movie where people were like, fuck that Superman guy?
I remember there were some protesters out the front of the Supreme Court.
That's it.
Yeah, yeah.
Some protesters.
And they were protesting around the statue they created of Superman. By the way, why did they make that?
Yeah, he just destroyed your city. And he just-
Exactly, yeah.
A shrine to our destroyer.
Yeah.
Well, here's the funny thing, because there are portrayals throughout the movie of Superman being like a god, saving for example, that flooded town or whatever.
Yeah.
There is that moment where he's in Mexico and he
okay, that
floats
scene.
he floats down to the people.
Yeah.
That is
And that is such a self-indulgent move for someone.
exactly.
Yeah, the messianic references in this movie were not subtle in any way. Like
No.
they were bleedingly obvious.
And I think that was a point, like, I don't know, what was the point of that, though? Was it to get us to go, oh, that's Superman, he's trying to take the role of Christ, and so we shouldn't like him?
Yeah, there's some symbolism with a painting on the back wall of Luther's mansion, this whole idea of, gods and demons and shit. There's supposed to be some subtext there, but it's not very well thought out.
For me, that is the only reason why they're portraying Superman as such, because to drive that message home, that the gods aren't the ones that come from heaven, they're actually the devils. And the people that are on Earth that are supposed to be the devils are the ones that are going to rise up. And then, did anyone notice the painting turned upside down at the end of the film?
Yeah.
And did anyone also notice that the demons also look like bat creatures?
They also kind of look like parademons a little bit as well.
So, like, there's supposed to be, like, triple meaning behind it, and it just doesn't work.
Yeah, but that's the thing. The meaning itself is not really that profound, you know? Like, it's not... Yeah. So you were mentioning the news story and the way that the public reacts to Superman throughout the movie. This is another, I'm going to say, criticism of the critics that people that enjoyed the movie have weighed against them, saying that they really enjoyed the fact that this was a movie that was grounded in the real world. It felt like it was happening, you know, in the modern world.
Yeah.
Well, you know, the idea they cut to news reports all the time and, you know, there's some discussion of politics, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But here's my problem with that. It's twofold. One, they treat the world as if nothing exists outside the domestic United States. So imagine all of a sudden a god comes down to Earth, fights another intergalactic being.
Yeah.
The next day, the world would be on the brink of fucking global war.
Yeah.
Imagine how the Russians and the Chinese would react to something like that. But none of that sort of subtext is written into the plot whatsoever. So you're not presenting a realistic view of the world as it is today with superheroes in it. You're just cherry picking, you know, visuals that make it look like it's authentic, but it's not.
Yeah, exactly. Like him going over to Africa, which is, you know, and something like that, which also, I mean, the fact that he did that seemed to have no ramification either.
No. Well, here's something. In light of what you were saying, Dan, every time they show him saving someone is always on the northern continent.
Exactly, yeah.
The only time he goes off is to save Lois.
Yes.
That's it.
So,
is he global or not?
Well, no, that's the thing. They've tried to present a realistic view of the world as it is today, but they've ignored the world and just concentrated on the United States. It's like...
Isn't the United States the world?
Well, according to the United States.
Right.
Here's the other thing, right, about the Africans that he supposedly murdered.
Yeah.
Tell me that the US public, on hearing that today, wouldn't go, fucking oath, go Superman, go kill more of them.
Yeah.
Why would they have a problem with him killing fucking African terrorists?
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing.
The public would be fine with that.
Here's the thing. If you remember the hearing, there's that woman describing that her village, members of her village were killed. It wasn't that they were terrorists. They were ordinary folk.
So they were angry about the collateral damage?
Yeah, I think that's more.
Again, that's not something that United States citizens would be concerned about in this day and age.
No, of course not.
And I think that was meant to go and link to...
Some would. Let's give them better.
Yeah, fair enough. But by and large, I think the popular opinion in the US would be go Superman, kill all the fucks.
Yeah, and I think that was meant to go, but the purpose of it was meant to go and link that to the whole, once again, the collateral damage thing, that he's meant to be the aftermath of Man of Steel.
Yeah.
So it's like, look at him, he has this ability to destroy and cause so much horror and so much damage, yet at the same time, he has the ability to do so much good. And I think that's what they were trying, well, when I say that, what Zack Snyder was trying to convey, is that he can do this anywhere and that he could, we should maybe fear him.
Yeah. But that's
at the same time, we don't.
Yeah, it's not like he committed mass atrocities or committed mass rescues.
No.
It was a couple of people here and there he is accused of killing or actually goes and saves. Like, it's not a big scale thing.
No.
See, with him trying to save people... Throughout the course of the movie, he's completely selfish. He never actually does anything for himself. Well, not for himself. He doesn't do anything for someone else until his mother is involved.
Yes.
And that's when he's like, maybe I've been wrong. But
like we said, even that is self-serving because it's his mother.
Yeah, but when it comes to actually trying to talk to Batman about it, and Batman is one side, he's like, I'm going to fucking kill you.
Yeah.
And it's just like, look, I was wrong. I was honestly wrong. And then all it takes is one punch to the face and he gets the shits and then just breaks out in a fight.
Yeah.
And that's the thing as well. And it breaks out in this fucking epic, immense fight that they're having with each other where Bruce Wayne has, fashioned kryptonite mist
Oh, yeah,
weapons.
kryptonite smoke
Yeah.
bombs.
Smoke bombs and
Yeah.
stuff, which I do have to say I liked. Actually, that's one thing I will give this. That when he did have Batman fighting Superman, it was pretty fucking cool.
Don't get
for
me
the
wrong, the
5
fighting
minutes-
sequences are good.
The fighting sequences were good in that area, and I'll
Some of them
show a
were
point
good.
where I didn't like it too much. But
The last fight is what I didn't like.
But I mean, that's the thing. They were having this fight to the death, absolute fight to the death. And then it's like, wait a minute, your mum's named Martha, my mum's named Martha. Did we just become best friends? Yep.
Yeah, the fucking Martha scene.
Like, fuck,
The
really?
only thing I can relate to with that is the fact that on a story level, Batman then realizes this guy isn't an alien. He is as human as the rest of us. That is the only reason why I think he puts down the weapon.
So that's the justification for the payoff of that scene.
Yes.
But like that's the most ham-fisted way to do it.
Of course.
Just have them yelling Martha at each
Yeah.
other.
Martha, do
How
it for
about
Martha.
like, maybe he sees, I don't know, do something with it. Don't just have them yelling at each other. It just seems daft.
Yeah, like I feel like it shouldn't have been. They shouldn't. This is once again, and I heard a really great review when you're talking about reviewers. I heard a great comment done by Kevin Smith. Actually, I think it was on Fat Man on Batman, and he actually said it's it kind of feels like Zack Snyder read the last book of The Dark Knight Returns, but didn't realize there was another 3 books and about 30 years worth of storyline that led up to that fight.
Yeah.
And I think that's the big part. It's because if we had a lead up to the fight that was a little bit more in depth and detailed, where we kind of were rooting for one or the other, they would have had that kind of maybe that connection already inbuilt. And then when he knew or he found out, wait a minute, your mother's in trouble,
Yeah.
that would have been a great way to stop. Like if they already knew each other or if they already had a connection, but there was nothing. They had zero connection. Except for a point where he got hit by his car.
See, for Batman's side of the story, it's you destroyed a city, you killed so many people across the planet because of this invasion. That's why I'm angry with you. You've got this unlimited power that needs to be in check. We cannot trust you to do the right thing, right? So I understand where he's coming from with his side of the argument.
Yeah.
Which is very much Luther's side of the argument, right?
And see, my problem with that side of the argument, just quickly, is so he goes from, all right, you've got unlimited power, we need to control you, to equating that to we should murder you brutally as soon as possible. Like, he goes straight from you're all powerful to death.
I think
that was a bit of a leap for me.
Yeah, it is a leap. And I think his discussion with Alfred, where he says, even if there's the 1% chance we should take it, it's because when are you going to get another opportunity with someone with so much power to actually take them down?
It's like maybe not take him down, maybe try and work with him, to better the entire world.
Exactly right. This is where, Batman is renowned to be like this master strategist, right? Even throughout the comics, him running the JLA or the Justice League, he had files on everyone. He knew all their weaknesses. He had a contingency
for every single one of them.
moment. He even had a contingency for himself should he go rogue. And it's, okay, where's that intelligence to play into this?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's completely missing. And so going back to your topic, Heath, of, like pick one side or the other, we can see Batman's side of things where it's like, okay, well, where he's terrified that this guy just will not fall in line. But then when it comes to Superman, because he's so one-sided, it's all so selfish, everyone would be leaning towards Batman in the first place.
Yeah.
But then again, both are flawed. And that's one thing that I wanted to bring up is the 3 main characters of this movie is Lex, Batman, and Superman.
Yes.
Right?
What's meant to be, yes.
All 3 have their flaws.
Yeah.
Right? And this movie is supposed to be like a journey of character, right?
Yeah.
They all have their lesson to learn. None of them learn anything.
Exactly.
No, yeah, exactly.
And you also I was going to say, they are meant to be the 3 main characters of this film, but if you actually have a look at screen time, it's almost like it's a Lois Lane film.
Yeah.
Like, really.
Hey there, folks. Guess what? This episode just has way too much in it to contain in just one episode. So, we've decided to put a pin in it for this week And next week, you'll receive the remainder of our discussion, our overview, our thoughts, you name it, and the rating, of course. And I promise you, it won't be a 3-parter. It will just be one more episode. So sorry to make you wait another week, but we just had to do it. It was just way too much for anyone to consume in one go. So anyway, stay tuned for the end of the theme song, and I promise you will get this week's Movie Who Am I answer reveal. Alrighty, we are the Theatre Gorillas. Stay tuned for next week. Thank you. Bye! All right, so you stayed in to find out what this week's Movie Who Am I is, and the movie is Kill the Messenger from 2014, starring,
Hawkeye.
yes, Jeremy Renner.
Did not pick that one at all.
Really good movie.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I
I
haven't
actually
seen
like
it.
Jeremy Renner.
It was a movie that I'm just like, not much of a rating on it, but I'm going to give this one a go. And to tell you the
Nice.
truth, it's actually really interesting. It's
Yeah, it's
based
been
on a
quite-
true story.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, the fucking Nicaraguan Contras, man.
Contras.
Contras.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, Contras.
Yes.
Like the game Contra.
Yes.
I love that game.
Anyway, we are Theatre Gorillas. Stay tuned don't stay tuned for anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can go home.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually,
All right.
you can stay tuned for the sounds of silence.
Right.
You've ruined it.
All right, guys. See you next week.
This podcast is recorded and produced by Theatre Gorillas. Edited by Dan Clark.
See ya. You're not going to say goodbye, Heath?
No.
Fuck you. I'm out of here.
That went long.